welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which consists of 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or storytelling in some form or other. So I've got my 6 things all ready, and I am ready to get started. So full disclosure, this is the second time I've started recording this. The first time I tried, I got about halfway through, and as you can tell, my voice is a little bit off, and also my brain was just not there, and I did not feel that it was going well, so I decided to try again. So maybe second time's the charm in this instance, we'll see. But number 1, I wanted to let y'all know that I am more than halfway finished with the first draft of my current work in progress, Intoxication. I believe I'm at close to 30,000 words now. I think it's 29,000 something. So in the sense it's going well. I've been able to keep up with my word count, even though we were really sick over the weekend. I actually didn't miss a day except Sunday, which I don't write anyway. So in a certain sense, like I said, going well. I'm getting it done. It's more than halfway through, but I am definitely really struggling with it. And I mean, I always struggle with first drafts. They always seem really horrible. But there are definitely in this particular book, there are things that I'm realizing are just not going to work. Major plot things that I just have my doubts about at this point. And maybe I'll feel differently when I'm done, because sometimes that does happen. Sometimes when I'm actually writing it, something seems horrible, and then I go back later and realize it's fine, but I don't know. Some of the stuff in this book I'm just not sure about. So that's very discouraging to just knowing in general with a first draft that you're writing something you're going to have to do so much more work on and change can get discouraging. And so I've definitely been in the mode, and especially with being sick and everything, the past few days of just wanting to be like, there's no real reason this has to get done right now. I'm not going to be publishing it for several months. So maybe it would be okay to just take a break, finish it later, and whatever. And in a sense, there's no reason I can't do that. Obviously, I can do whatever I want with it. And also, there is no reason that I need to finish it right now. But I just really would love, because with the past several books, I have taken a break toward the end and then not finished it until later, and in some cases much, much later. And even though I don't feel like there's momentum now, there's more than there would be if I took another long break. And so I would just love not to do that. I would just love, for once to just go beginning to end in a book without a break, and then set it aside and work on it more later. So I'm going to try not to do that, but I will let y'all know what happens. Number 2, one thing that I've been doing as far as marketing and kind of just playing around with is taking each of the books in the Firmament series one at a time in order, and doing free promos on them, because I can do 5 free days a month with each book or something. I don't remember exactly what the deal is, but anyway, so I've been doing 5-day free promos on each of them, and usually a few days to a week in between. And then on one of the free days, I buy a promo ad for them. And anyway, so it's been going well in the sense of getting a lot of downloads, which hasn't really translated into sales yet, but it is kind of an experiment to see what works, see what doesn't. Also, getting books downloaded is good for the mysterious algorithms, apparently. So anyway, what I wanted to mention, though, is that this past week, the book that I did was Gestern, which is book 5 in the series, and it outperformed the others by a lot. Most of the books on their peak days, the days where I've bought an advertisement, will have around 200 downloads, and on its peak day, Gestern had over 350, I believe. And I don't really have any thoughts about that. I have no idea why. I did them all on the same day of the week, didn't really do anything different with any of them. My only thought about what it could be is if the description sounded more interesting to people, but I would have thought it would sound the least interesting because it doesn't even take place in space. So I just wonder, and I'm going to be doing the next book, No Man, this coming weekend, and so I will be curious to see if it does go up more, maybe it is like a momentum thing, like people that have been downloading the others, in addition to new downloaders. I'm not sure. Or if it does less, then maybe it was something particular about that book. I have no idea, but it's been really interesting, and I just wish I knew the answer. So number 3, I am finally back to doing the mini reviews of books I read last year on my blog, and I'm so excited to be able to do that again now that I have my blog back. And so I go through all the books I read last year, 5 books per post, which I usually do about once a week, may be able to do one today, and just give like a paragraph or 2 of thoughts on each of the books that I read. And I loved doing it last year, and I've been really loving doing it this year because I read so many books, and it's nice to kind of just like take a little walk down memory lane of my last reading year. And a lot of people do ask, like, when I read a book, like, oh, tell me what you think. And I usually don't get around to doing that. So here's my thoughts on every book. And so yeah, I think I'm up to maybe like book 30, maybe 35, I don't remember, and out of 65, so about halfway through. Anyway, if you have any interest in that, you can look at my blog and just see some of those. They're super short, like I said, really just like a few sentences, just like my general impression of the books. The number 4, I've talked several times on here about trying to find read alouds for my girls that they can really enjoy and understand at their ages. And so one that I found was when I went to the Texas Homeschool Coalition Convention this past spring, I found this one booth that had these books that I remembered from when I was a kid, and they're just these sweet little Mennonite story collections of this family that just like learns different lessons about wisdom and things like that. And I remembered liking them as a kid, so I got one to read to my girls, and it's called Prudence and the Millers. And it's just each sort of like chapter is just this little short story about, one of the kids in this family that learns, the importance of telling the truth, or I don't know, just different things like that. So I could never tell when I'm reading to my girls how much they are understanding or remembering or whatever. But it's been interesting with this one to know that they must be remembering it, because they'll reference a lot of the stories much later, and in a context that makes total sense. So for instance, there was one story where a little boy at a church picnic just ate tons and tons of these little cakes and got super sick. And so several times since then, if we're like talking about eating dessert or being sick, one of the girls, even my 2-year-old April, she'll say, eating too much dessert will make you sick, and they remember. Or there was one about the importance of not like screaming or playing too crazy when you're swimming, and about the danger of drowning if you're like pretending to yell for help so that no one knows if you really need help or whatever. And so a couple times since then we've been swimming, and the girls will say like, don't like play crazy in the pool, like it's dangerous or whatever. Like they remember the stories and the talks that we had about it. So that's been really great. And there's other little books in this series, so I might have to find some of the other ones when we're done with this. Number 5 on my currently reading, I actually just finished this yesterday, so it's technically I'm between books, but I wanted to tell you all about this one. So just read a book called Book Girl by Sarah Clarkson, and it was so good, so good. And I just randomly stumbled upon it at the library. I just went to the library one evening and was just like sort of roaming and wandering around, picking up things that looked interesting to me. Found this book, and it was just so good. Kind of most of it consisted of a lot of different book lists, just recommended books for different types of things. And that was, I'm basically going to try to read all of them. But also it just delved into like why we read and what it means to have your identity shaped by being, as she calls it, a book girl, which I 100% consider myself and always have. And just the insights into reading and what that means and what it can do for us, and what it tells us about our place in the world and about the goodness of God and just everything. It was so beautiful and so relatable. And I'm just so glad that I found it and really excited to get into some of these book recommendations of hers. So yeah, I 100% recommend this, and I guess I will be doing a little tiny review of it also on my blog sometime next year. So number 6. This relates a little bit to what I talked about earlier with my work in progress. And I just wanted to share thoughts, and I guess on, you would say, momentum, but whatever you would call it. Here's one thing that I've noticed lately as I do work on habit building in several different areas, is that the more I do something, the more I tend to be motivated to do it. And it's been really fascinating because I have been growing in a lot of good habits over the past months, and I've been like several different areas, like I said. So writing and marketing, doing my daily Bible reading and quiet time, keeping the house clean, just several different areas. And reading is another one. And I have noticed in every single one of these, this snowball effect that, it's really hard to start something new, and it's really hard to be consistent in building a new habit. But I obviously knew that, the more you do something, the easier it is to do because you're used to it. But I'm finding more than that the more I'm doing it, actually, the more excited I have been to do it. And it's even in things where I would not have thought that to be the case, like house cleaning. I've gotten much more consistent about keeping my house clean, doing specific daily and weekly chores. And I'm not going to say I'm like super excited about it, but I do find that at first, I did not used to be very good about that at all. And things were pretty messy. A lot of the time, I was really bad about not staying on top of laundry, things like that. And I made a decision to change that and to work on it. And I do find that now, not only is it easier because of building a habit, but I do find myself taking more pride in my home and the way that it looks, and the way that it is for my family, and having it be neat and pleasant and things like that. Like, I do honestly feel like, in a certain way, more of a sense of excitement about that. And definitely for other things, even things like, now that I've been doing more marketing on my books and trying to do more of, that side of things, it's always been something I dreaded. And yet the more that I'm doing it, the more I will start to like have new ideas and like kind of look forward to it and think about, ooh, and I want to do this and that. And definitely when it comes to reading, like, I get more and more excited the more I read, just thinking about, oh, there's so many books out there, and like, I want to read them all. Like, it's sort of reignited this spark. And even with my, like I mentioned, daily, Bible time, quiet time, not only is it easier to get up and do that in the morning, but I find that I'll start thinking like, oh, I really want to, use this cool journal and like this specific, Bible journaling method or whatever, like things that I'm excited to try and do, and thinking about how there's so much more time ahead to work on these things and to get to do them. And it's just been really nice because I think, I don't know about you, but I tend to think, that you will get more tired of things the more you do it, because things can become monotonous. And I don't know, I guess I would have more of an expectation that, you start to get tired of doing these things. And yet I found so much the opposite, that there is this, like I said, snowball effect of not only building the habit, but building the joy in what you're doing. And so it's been so really wonderful these past few months just to watch that get set in motion. I'm not saying at all that it's always easy.